November is Alzheimer's Awareness Month. Now, it's a time to recognize families affected by the devastating disease. As they confront daily challenges of Alzheimer's, new developments are offering hope in the form of early diagnosis and new treatments. I spoke with two experts leading the way, and for both, the mission is personal.
How are you, Mr. President?
Over 41 years ago, former President Ronald Reagan proclaimed November as Alzheimer's Awareness Month. In 1994, he shared his struggles with the disease and was joined by 2 million Americans who were also suffering. Since then, the number of Americans stricken by Alzheimer's has more than tripled, with over 95,000 confirmed cases coming from Louisiana. But thanks to people like Professor Owen Carmichael from Pennington Biomedical Research Center, there is hope.
Alzheimer's disease is a very common disease among older adults. It is a progressive brain disease that causes memory loss that progresses over time to such a degree that towards the end of the disease, people become completely dependent on nursing care, and ultimately they die of the disease.
Dr. Carmichael dedicated nearly 2 decades of his career to Alzheimer's research. After experiencing the heartbreak of losing both his father and grandfather to the disease, he's made it his life mission to answer the questions of why and how, to prevent as many people as possible from experiencing the same pain that he did.
So I started studying Alzheimer's disease for the first time right after I got out of graduate school in 2003. And at that point, it became very obvious that this is what I was kind of meant to do. And I found myself just working on it all hours, far after I should have been doing other things and relaxing. I found myself working kind of obsessively on it, and that's kind of taken me to where I am today.
He and his team are responsible for major breakthroughs as a result of his research, and 2 groundbreaking discoveries. One being a drug that works to slow down the process of Alzheimer's if caught at the right time.
The people who take these new drugs appear to just have a few more months or maybe even a couple of more years of intact thinking skills. And so that's really tantalizing and promising.
The second discovery, blood tests that can reveal whether or not a person is susceptible to Alzheimer's. Based on the results, the patient can begin early treatment.
So what we've got now is a very, very exciting time. We're coming closer and closer to the day where we can tell that Alzheimer's disease has started in the brain before you, the patient, show any signs or symptoms. So again, it's a little bit like, for example, getting a mammogram when you feel perfectly fine and it shows that there's breast cancer there, so that we can nip it in the bud before it becomes something that's really life-threatening.
Barbara Alton, Executive Director of Alzheimer's Services at the Capitol, is also working to help families defy the Alzheimer's odds. She and her organization work to help make Alzheimer's research possible by hosting fundraising events and providing resources to families with a loved one suffering from the disease.
We're here. People need to know there is help, and that you shouldn't fear this disease. It is the most feared disease because it's more of the unknown. Because when you lose your memory, there's a very vast unknown of how am I going to handle this. But there is hope, and that is really what we need to look at, is that there's so much research going on now that we have hope. There may not be a cure, but there will be some interventions.
Much like Dr. Carmichael, Barbara has a history of Alzheimer's disease in her family, but that's not the only place her passion comes from. Providing hope to families is what drives her.
We're here as a one-stop shop for the caregiver or the person who is diagnosed, but we provide all kinds of education programs to learn about what you can do for proper care, for risk reduction, for handling the finances. It's a very long-lived disease. It's very hard on the caregivers. You're saying goodbye for a long time.
The good news, love conquers all. It was the love that Dr. Carmichael felt for his father and grandfather that drove him to research possible solutions to the Alzheimer's epidemic. It was Barbara's love for her mother and 8 aunts that drove her to lead an organization to help raise money for research and provide aid and educational resources to families walking through the process. Lastly, it was President Reagan's love for his country that prompted him to set a month aside to raise awareness to provoke people to fight the good fight for their families.
Support provided by Prevention on the Go from Mary Bird Perkins Cancer Center. Mobile screenings for prostate, breast, skin, and colorectal cancers available for all throughout Louisiana. More under Schedule a Screening at marybird.org.